The Discovery Admiral Kethvar stood on the command deck of the massive warship Eternal Conquest, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade into the familiar blackness of real space. His 4 arms moved with practiced precision across the control panels, each limb working independently as his species had evolved to do over millions of years. The Nexus Confederation had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and Kethvar had been part of that expansion for nearly 2 centuries. "Admiral, we have arrived at the target system," announced Science Advisor Zixtal, her crystalline body chiming softly as she moved across the bridge. The tall, translucent being's internal lights pulsed with excitement as data flowed through her consciousness. Initial scans confirmed the presence of a habitable world in the 3rd orbital position. Kethvar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The Confederation was always in need of new worlds, new resources, and new species to incorporate into their vast empire. This particular system had been flagged by long-range scouts as promising, though they had detected signs of primitive technology that suggested the presence of intelligent life. "What do our sensors tell us about the inhabitants?" Kethvar asked, his deep voice resonating through the bridge's translation systems. Around him, dozens of different alien species worked at their stations, each contributing their unique abilities to the ship's operations. This diversity was the strength of the Confederation. Every species had something valuable to offer once they were properly integrated. Zixtal's lights flickered as she processed the incoming data. "Fascinating, Admiral. The species calls themselves humans, and they appear to be remarkably young on the galactic scale. They have only recently developed atomic energy and have barely begun to explore their own solar system. We detected a few primitive stations around their homeworld, and what appears to be a small outpost on their natural satellite." "Primitive weapons?" General Morden inquired from his position at the tactical station. The hulking, 6-legged warrior had led the conquest of 17 worlds for the Confederation, and his tactical expertise was legendary throughout the fleet. "Basic kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, and crude nuclear weapons," Zixtal replied. "Their technology level is approximately equivalent to what the Confederation possessed 4,000 years ago. They should pose no significant threat to even a single cruiser, let alone our full battle fleet." Kethvar nodded approvingly. "Another easy conquest, then." The process was always the same. Arrive in overwhelming force, demand surrender, demonstrate superior firepower if needed, then incorporate the new species into the Confederation's growing empire. Most species recognized the futility of resistance and submitted peacefully once they saw what they were facing. "Begin standard assessment protocol," he ordered. "I want detailed scans of their population centers, military installations, and technological capabilities. How many of these humans are there?" "Approximately 8 billion individuals distributed across their homeworld," Zixtal responded, her excitement growing as more data flowed in. "They appear to be organized into numerous smaller political entities rather than a unified planetary government. This fragmentation should make conquest even simpler, as we can negotiate with each group separately." "Excellent," General Morden rumbled. "Divide and conquer has always been the most efficient approach. How many ships should we deploy for the initial contact?" Kethvar considered the question carefully. The Confederation prided itself on overwhelming displays of power that convinced new species to surrender without unnecessary bloodshed. However, there was no point in deploying more resources than needed. 5 battle cruisers should be more than sufficient, he decided. Their primitive technology cannot possibly threaten ships of this class. "We'll follow standard protocol, offer them the opportunity to join the Confederation peacefully, and if they refuse, we'll demonstrate our capabilities by destroying one of their military installations. That should convince them to see reason." "Admiral," called out Communications Officer Rethlan, an insectoid being whose compound eyes could process multiple data streams simultaneously. "We're receiving numerous electromagnetic transmissions from the planet. The humans appear to have extensive communication networks covering their entire world." "Can you decode their languages?" Kethvar asked. "Already in progress," Rethlan clicked. "They use thousands of different dialects, but several appear to be dominant. Our translation matrices should have basic communication protocols ready within the hour. As the mighty fleet positioned itself in the outer reaches of the human solar system, Kethavar felt the familiar satisfaction of another successful discovery. The humans seemed like a typical young species, divided, primitive, and completely unprepared for contact with a galactic civilization. Their world appeared rich in resources, and their population was large enough to provide a substantial workforce once they were properly educated in Confederation values. Science advisor, what can you tell me about human biology and psychology? He inquired. Understanding new species was crucial for successful integration. Zixtal's internal lights swirled as she compiled her analysis. Quite interesting, Admiral. Humans appear to be remarkably adaptable for such a young species. They've colonized every continent on their world, from frozen polar regions to burning deserts. Their biological diversity is impressive, and they seem capable of surviving in a wide range of environments. What about their social structures? Complex and varied, she replied. They organize themselves into competing groups based on geography, ideology, resources, and cultural differences. However, our historical analysis suggests they occasionally unite against common threats. This unity appears to be temporary and typically dissolves once the threat is removed. General Morden's tactical mind was already working. Temporary unity could be problematic during the initial conquest phase. However, once we demonstrate our overwhelming superiority, their natural divisions should reassert themselves. We can then negotiate with individual groups rather than facing a unified resistance. Kethavar approved of this analysis. The Confederation had encountered similar species before, and the pattern was always the same. Initial shock and fear, followed by desperate attempts at resistance, then gradual acceptance of the inevitable, and finally grateful integration into the greater galactic community. Admiral, Rethalan announced, translation protocols are now online. We can communicate with the humans in their primary languages. Excellent. Prepare the standard first contact message. We'll give them 12 of their hours to respond before proceeding to the demonstration phase. Kethavar turned to address his entire bridge crew. This should be a routine operation, but I want everyone prepared. The humans may attempt some form of resistance, however futile it might be. As the Confederation fleet moved deeper into the solar system, monitoring stations on Earth began detecting the alien presence. In military command centers across the planet, alarms began sounding. As radar and telescope operators reported impossible readings, ships the size of cities were approaching Earth, moving with technology that defied human understanding. But Kethavar and his fleet had made a critical error in their assessment. They had studied human technology, human divisions, and human biology. What they had failed to understand was the human spirit. They had observed humanity's tendency to fight among themselves, but they had missed the deeper truth, that humans were at their most dangerous when they had something worth fighting. For the Confederation had ruled the galaxy for millennia, through superior technology and overwhelming force. They had conquered hundreds of worlds and integrated thousands of species. They had never encountered a species quite like humanity, a species that viewed impossible odds not as a reason to surrender, but as a challenge to overcome. As the alien fleet prepared to deliver their ultimatum, humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would echo across the stars for generations to come. The greatest mistake the Nexus Confederation had ever made was assuming that humans would react like any other species they had encountered. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. First contact. Gone Wrong Commander Sarah Chen stood in the Global Defense Command Center, watching the massive displays that showed the approaching alien fleet. As the highest-ranking military officer in the newly formed Earth Defense Force, she had spent years preparing for this moment, though she had always hoped it would never come. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission on all global frequencies, reported Lieutenant Jackson from the communications station. It appears to be some kind of universal translator system. Put it through to all world leaders immediately, Chen ordered. This is what we've been preparing for. The main screen flickered to life, showing the imposing figure of Admiral Kethavar. His alien features were stern and commanding, clearly designed to intimidate. When he spoke, his words were translated into dozens of human languages simultaneously. "People of Earth," Kethvar began, his voice carrying the authority of 3,000 years of galactic conquest. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Nexus Confederation. Your world has been selected for integration into our galactic civilization. You have 12 hours to surrender unconditionally and prepare for peaceful transition to Confederation rule. This is your only opportunity to avoid unnecessary conflict." Chen felt a chill run down her spine, but it wasn't fear. It was anger. The aliens' casual assumption that humanity would simply submit without a fight revealed everything she needed to know about their character. "Lieutenant, open a channel to respond," she ordered. "Ma'am, are you sure? Shouldn't we wait for the world leaders to coordinate a response?" Chen looked around the command center at the faces of her staff. These were the men and women who had volunteered to stand between humanity and whatever threats might come from the stars. They deserved to know where their commander stood. "No, Lieutenant. Some things are too important to wait for committees." She activated the communication system and looked directly into the camera. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I'm responding on behalf of all humanity." On his bridge, Kethvar was surprised to receive such a quick response. Usually, primitive species required time to panic and argue among themselves before accepting the inevitable. "Commander Chen," he replied, "I trust you are prepared to discuss the terms of your planet's surrender." Chen's expression hardened. "Admiral, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We're not surrendering. We're not joining your confederation. And we're certainly not going to roll over and let you take our world without a fight." A murmur of confusion rippled across the alien bridge. This was not the expected response. General Morden leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing on the human commander. "Commander," Kethvar said, his voice carrying a note of patient condescension, "perhaps you do not understand the situation. We have 5 battlecruisers in your system, each capable of destroying your largest cities. Your technology is primitive by galactic standards. Resistance is futile." Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Admiral, perhaps you don't understand the situation. You've just threatened 8 billion humans and their children. You've told us we have to give up our freedom, our independence, and our right to determine our own future. Do you have any idea how badly you've just screwed up?" Behind Chen, alarms began sounding as radar stations around the world detected movement. What the aliens had dismissed as primitive human technology was suddenly revealing hidden capabilities. Satellite networks that had appeared to be simple communication systems began reconfiguring themselves into targeting arrays. Underground installations that had been invisible to alien sensors began powering up defensive systems that had been secretly developed over decades. "Admiral," Science Advisor Zixtal announced urgently, "we're detecting massive energy signatures across the human homeworld. These readings are far beyond what our initial scans indicated." Chen continued speaking, her voice carrying to every human on Earth through the global communication networks. "You see, Admiral, you made a fundamental error in your assessment. You assumed we'd react like other species you've conquered. But you missed something important about humanity. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And we definitely don't bow down to bullies no matter how big their ships are." Across Earth, the response was immediate and overwhelming. In New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and every other major city, millions of people poured into the streets. But they weren't panicking or fleeing, they were volunteering. Military recruitment centers were flooded with citizens demanding to join the fight. Factories began converting to wartime production. Scientists and engineers who had been working on secret projects for years finally revealed what they had been building. Dr. Marcus Webb, the brilliant physicist who had been leading humanity's secret space defense program, activated communication systems that connected every major scientific installation on Earth. "All stations, this is Control. Operation. Unity is now active. Begin Phase 1 initialization." Around the world, massive installations that had been disguised as research facilities, power plants, and communication arrays began revealing their true purpose. Electromagnetic railguns emerged from underground silos. fusion reactors that had been secretly developed using captured alien technology. From crashed scout ships began powering weapons systems that the Confederation had no idea existed. "Admiral," Chen continued, her voice now broadcast across the globe, "you wanted to see what humanity is capable of? You wanted to test our resolve? Congratulations. You're about to get a demonstration that your empire will never forget." Captain. Miguel Torres sat in the cockpit of his experimental fighter craft, hidden in one of the dozens of secret bases that had been constructed in Earth's asteroid belt. The ship around him represented the pinnacle of human engineering, a fusion of captured alien technology and human innovation that had taken 20 years to develop. "Ghost Squadron, this is Lead," he broadcast to his wing of stealth fighters. "The party's about to start. Remember, we've trained our entire lives for this moment. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten our families." "Copy that, Lead," came the responses from pilots around the solar system. Hidden bases on Mars, the Moon, and throughout the asteroid belt began launching fighters that were invisible to Confederation sensors. Back on the alien flagship, panic was beginning to set in. What had started as a routine conquest was rapidly becoming something unprecedented in Confederation history. "Admiral," General Mordoon reported grimly, "our tactical analysis is concerning. The humans appear to have been preparing for our arrival. These energy signatures suggest weapons technology that approaches Confederation standards." "Impossible," Kethvar snarled. "Our scouts have been monitoring this system for decades. These humans barely have interplanetary capability." "Then your scouts were fooled." Chen's voice cut through their communications. "You see, Admiral, when we detected your reconnaissance ships 30 years ago, we made a decision. We could either hide and hope you'd ignore us, or we could prepare to give you the fight of your lives. Guess which option we chose?" On Earth, Ambassador Elena Vasquez was coordinating with allies throughout the solar system. Allies the Confederation had never suspected existed. Hidden colonies, secret research stations, and defensive installations that had been carefully concealed from alien observation were now revealing themselves. "Admiral Kethvar," Chen continued, her voice now carrying across Confederation communication networks as human hackers demonstrated their ability to penetrate alien systems. "You made one critical mistake. You assumed we were alone. You assumed we were primitive. And most importantly, you assumed we would be afraid." The tactical display on the Confederation flagship suddenly lit up with thousands of new contacts. Human ships were emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system, employing stealth technology that made them nearly invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. "Admiral," Zixtal announced, her crystalline form flickering with alarm, "the humans have been broadcasting our conversation throughout their planet. Their entire species is now aware of our presence and our intentions." Chen smiled grimly. "That's right, Admiral. Every human on Earth now knows that aliens have come to conquer us. They know their children are threatened. They know their freedom is at stake. And they know that surrender is not an option." The response was everything Chen could have hoped for. Across Earth, humanity was uniting in a way it never had before. Old enemies became allies. Competing nations shared technology and resources, and 8 billion people prepared to fight for their species' survival. "Admiral," General Mordoon reported quietly, "recommend immediate withdrawal to reassess the situation. This is not what our intelligence indicated, but Kethvar's pride would not allow retreat. The Confederation had never been forced to withdraw from a primitive world." "Negative. Prepare to demonstrate our firepower. Target one of their military installations and destroy it. Once they see what we're capable of, they'll surrender." Chen heard the order through the hacked alien communications. "Ghost Squadron, you are weapons-free. Show them what we're capable of." The battle for Earth was about to begin, and neither side was prepared for what was about to unfold. The Nexus Confederation thought they were facing another primitive species. Humanity was about to prove them catastrophically wrong.